Hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking at David Hume's philosophy again. Today is part three. We're going to be looking at his legacy and his long-term impact to us as modern people today. Yeah, so let's look into how he impacted our life currently. So I hope you remember a lot of what we talked about previously about who he was, his work as an Enlightenment thinker, and kind of his legacy in terms of philosophy, psychology, economics, and rejecting religion. We're going to be looking more into that and looking at just specific ways in which he actually influenced a lot of our modern thought. Yeah, so let's dive right into it. So, if you remember, his most prominent ideas were skepticism, empiricism, and naturalism, and all of these kind of laid groundwork for a moral intellectual inquiry that kind of rejected previous traditions of religion and just very optimistic speculation as a faith in religion itself, and kind of rejecting that in the stead of actual concrete objective and sensory logic and detail that you can verify. And this kind of has a lot of really important impacts on our lives today. We're going to be looking at some of his enduring relevance in terms of these ideas. Yeah, so before we start again, David Hume's impacts on philosophy is monumental and it's influencing a wide range of thinkers and movements currently in our society today. For example, philosophers like Immanuel Kant. Kant created Hume for waking him from his dogmatic slumber. So, a dogmatic slumber can be thought of as something that's primarily like a fixed idea on like academic jargons and even like conservatives thoughts that kind of limit your belief and make it harder for you to expand your thought in a creative way. And for Kant, who was a philosopher like I believe 30 or 40 years after Hume, he was learning a lot of the conservative stuff, even if he was almost right after the Enlightenment era, and he was able to look at Hume and think, oh, it doesn't have to be this conservative and very kind of systematic idea when it comes to philosophy. It can be a dialogue kind of understanding, it can be a casual, it can be a witty conversation that is accessible to all people. And Hume's skepticism about causation also inspired Kant to develop his own critical philosophy, and that kind of bridged rationalism and empiricism and all these reasoning together. Yeah, and Hume's belief also continues to help under in the understanding of modern empiricism, and it's where the origination of the sensory experience shaping our lives come into the play of later imperialists. So we have other empiricists like John Stuart Mill and A.J. Ayer, and all these people continue to build on Hume's skepticism and metaphysics and advocate for verifiable and empirical knowledge. Yeah, Immanuel Kant, he famously credited Hume for awakening him from all these things just because of how innovative and how just groundbreaking Hume's philosophy was at the time. And so Hume's work is a cornerstone of Western thought. It's influencing debates and dialogues on reason, on evidence, on the nature of reality and truth. We also see Hume's exploration of human nature and how this impacted modern psychology because Hume argued that beliefs are formed through habit and association, as we saw yesterday, more than logic, and this influenced thinkers to kind of understand behavioral psychology. He also talked about emotions as driving human action, and this influenced people like William James and Sigmund Freud. We also see that his kind of understanding of cognitive processes and how his focus on how the mind organizes experiences and how they process it aligns with a lot of the contemporary studies on memories and perception that has uncovered really how the human biology works when it comes to understanding new information. And so Hume's insight, although it was made at a time when scientific research were almost null and they didn't have the same kind of psychological evidence and research that are available to us right now, it really provided very good informed information that almost completely foreshadowed a lot of our psychological research, and it helped us to build a lot of research themselves in understanding how humans think, feel, and make their decisions, and ultimately what makes human beings humans. Yeah, and these relationships are so important to us because we must understand that by treating the mind as kind of a natural phenomenon that occurs, Hume anticipated a lot of the methods that we use in psychology today as well. Yeah, moving on, he also impacted economics. And we talked about Adam Smith a bit, how they were lifelong friends and how they mutually influenced each other a lot. Yeah, so Hume's collaboration with Adam Smith in his life and also in his works helped to shape the wealth of nations, one of the most important economic theory texts that we have currently. It has become the foundation of all economic research, and when you're thinking of learning economics, this is a must read, a precursor to all the research that we have. And Hume, therefore, also shaped one of the most important books we have on economics. Hume also argued for a lot of things. He argued for money and trade. He said that an increase of money in supply and in the amount that is circulated in the market is only temporary in its boost of trade and production. And this principle later became formalized into monetary economics. His essay also on commerce and trade, they highlighted the benefits of open markets, and this influenced classical economics, like even Adam Smith. So Hume's contributions on economics just cannot be undermined. Hume wasn't just a writer, he wasn't just a philosopher, he wasn't just a historian. He was an economist fundamentally, especially in his connection to Adam Smith. And yeah, Hume's contributions just show us that philosophy doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just, religion, it's not just morality, it's not even just who we are as people and our reality. It's really intersected and so tightly connected with practical ideas like economics and understanding human psychology in a very scientific perspective. Yeah, so Hume's contributions in all these things just cannot be overstated. They are so significant. Let's also look at some criticisms Hume received. We talked about this a bit last time, but Hume received a lot of criticism, and his reputation, especially in his lifetime, was not the best. Um, yeah, and because of his skepticism of causations, critics argued that just Hume just undermines the certainty um, of scientific knowledge, and that if we cannot justify cause and effect relationships, how can we even, trust scientific conclusion? Because Hume asked, maybe the cause and effect that we see in our lives that we experience may not be the whole truth of it. People were like, well, then how do you even know anything? Like, how does science even work? And that's a lot of the criticism that he received when it comes to skepticism. It's also related to his religious ideas because, like we said last time, Hume a lot of the time was critiquing religion and especially miracles. And this just provoked a lot of opposition at the time, especially because Europe was very religious. And especially with theologians like Thomas Reid just accusing him of undermining faith itself. He just, yeah, he just experienced a lot of backlash, and this kind of tells us, yeah, pioneers and people who are willing to reject things that have been made concrete will be hated for what they do. Um, Hume's emphasis on the emotions and moral judgments kind of led to the question of, you know, does he even provide a good enough foundation for ethics? And these ethical concerns were so important, also because it was tied to religious backgrounds, also because it's fundamentally what makes human beings human. He just got a lot of hatred for all of these works. But yeah, despite these criticism, it seems like Hume was able to continue with his belief, able to carry it over, and his boldness in his philosophy and ability to challenge all these deeply held beliefs is something that is significant and something we must admire. Let's look at his reputation during his lifetime. So, among intellectuals, he faced a lot of mixed reactions. He was respected in some circles for his very clear and original ideas, but his controversial views on religion kind of did limit the circles in which he was accepted. And Hume's critique of miracles again led him to accusations of heresy and atheism. But interestingly, he gained more public recognition as a historian, and he famously published a book called a story, not a story, it's a long publication called The History of England, which became the bestseller, and it's still widely recognized and respected for its narrative, engaging narrative style, and also its historical accuracy. And so Hume's career was just very multifaceted, and it kind of shows us how his intellect just like transcended all the boundaries that we know of. He just wasn't a philosopher, he wasn't an economist, he was everything and anything at the same time. I think that's very beautiful. I think a lot of very genius and brilliant minds did the same kind of thing. Yeah, let's look at some popular adaptations of Hume's philosophy. So, Hume's ideas have been adapted in various, very accessible formats for us. This is a very good thing, and it kind of ensures us that he is still relevant to us today as modern audiences. So, books like A Little History of Philosophy, it kind of simplifies Hume's ideas for general readers for us to read, and these kind of explain Hume's ideas in a more fundamentally easy way for us to understand. There are also lots of podcasts. There are podcasts like Philosophize This, and this kind of explores Hume's arguments about causation and morality. We also have his concepts that are discussed in university courses and public lectures worldwide. And we have a lot of TV shows like The Great Philosophers and BBC's Philosophy, A Guide to Happiness, and these episodes that feature Hume's work. So these adaptations that are being published inside and outside of academic circles, inside and outside of philosophical circles, continue to inspire both academic and non-academic audiences to continue to read into his work and to look into it because he just presents a lot of different things that we as people in the 21st century are also struggling with. Yeah, let's look at some popular media now. So the most famous thing I think is the television shows that have been made. I have a poster for the West World, but we also have The Good Place, and these kind of incorporates Hume's skepticism and his ideas about morality and human behavior into it. We also have films like The Matrix that draws on Hume's critique of causation and certainty, and it kind of questions the nature of reality. And I think this is a very popular idea, this idea of does reality even exist? Are our perceptions and our sensory organs even accurate? Does life exist in the kind of causation that we see? And these are just fascinating ideas to explore, and it kind of gives us so many options to the to all the sci-fi and fantasy novels that we see today. We also have podcast programs like The Partially Examined Life, and these like very frequently feature episodes on Hume, making his ideas more accessible to a broader audience today. Yeah, so Hume obviously reaches beyond, far, far beyond academia, and it just shapes how we engage with a lot of these philosophical questions today and in everyday life. Yeah, so why is Hume so important today? What does he do for modern readers? Well, Hume's philosophy remains so relevant to us today. Is it's because, first of all, he introduced evidence-based reasoning. His ideas of empiricism, they continue to work in our age, in an age of misinformation. Kind of Hume's insistence on objective beliefs and real evidence is it encourages us of skepticism towards unsupported and clear misinformated ideas. Yeah, and his kind of arguments about morality and the role of emotions in moral discussions and decision continue to resonate on our questions of ethics and human rights and what we as human beings must give for others and what we must be protected in ourselves. We also have um, his understanding of scientific limits. So Hume's insight into causation and induction and just like the boundaries of scientific understanding is the basis of a lot of scientific inquiry today, because we kind of must acknowledge to a certain degree that no time soon we're finding out the secret to the universe, and that um, a kind of patience and even a reverence, a kind of a respect for nature and all the forces that operate in our universe is necessary. So yeah, Hume's kind of ability to question the previous assumptions that we have challenges us to kind of think very critically about the complex world and how we must play a role in it. It's a very age-long question that always will be relevant. Yeah, so why does Hume matter? Why was he so important? Why is he important? Why is it so important that we read him today and, not any other writer that we can read about? Well, I think Hume as a person, first of all, just gives us so much ideas on what a person can be. A person can be dedicated to his work. A person can love philosophy, love intellectual learning itself to the degree that one gives up a lot of the kind of financial pursuits that they can be making. That kind of reminds us, hey, like these days, Instagram, social media will tell you that being rich is everything, but really, it's not. And on a philosophical point of view, also, his works kind of inspire us to embrace the doubts of information that is around us. He really emphasized the importance of evidence, of observation, of reason in understanding the world, and this kind of sets the foundation for a lot of modern intellectual inquiry, whether it be math, science, philosophy, or psychology. He also critiques the certainty that we have about us and reminds us to be very open-minded, to not be stuck in the kind of dogmatic cage that Immanuel Kant says Hume freed him from, just continuing to expand our intellectual curiosity. And yeah, I think by bridging philosophy, science, and psychology, Hume has created a timeless legacy for us that continues to challenge and enlighten us, that continues to give us hope, and yeah, continues to allow us more discovery and progress. And Hume's philosophy, it might be kind of hard to look at. He's not as famous as other philosophers these days, like Friedrich Nietzsche, for example. But it's so important that we take his words seriously and we stay open-minded. We kind of raise doubts and challenge previously established institutions, and not take the world at face value, but seek a deeper understanding through careful thoughts and observations. And that's a legacy that just cannot be overstated. Yeah, so we looked at David Hume for the past 3 weeks, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's he's really a very, very talented, a genius writer that gives us so much understanding of human life, and he's someone we all should definitely read about. I am so grateful that I have been able to share this journey with you, and I'll be back next week with Immanuel Kant and his life, his works, and his legacies. Thank you so much for joining me, and bye.